Hear the words of the Collect for the fourth Sunday after Trinity. O God, the protector of all that trust in Thee, without whom nothing is strong, nothing is holy, increase and multiply upon us Thy mercy, that Thou, being our ruler and guide, we may so pass through things temporal, that we finally lose not the things eternal. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in Thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. We pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.
Amen.
Amen. The Collect brings to mind a question. And that question is, how do we get through the events of this life? Now, the good times seem to be relatively easy. And yet, are they really that easy? And are they really that good? The bad times always seem to be harder to get through. Yet, are they really that bad? Or do we just see them that way? Perhaps we have all heard of this particular book. I know we've probably thought these words that asks the question, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, the thing is that that's what happens. But bad things happen to bad people too. I mean, good and bad things happen to all people. That's just the way it is. I mean, Jesus tells us this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 45. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. So there seems to be a difficulty in then trying to decide what is bad and what is good. Now, when most people are talking about that, they're using the criteria of the world to decide which is which. You know, pain is bad, lack of pain is good. Happiness is good, while being sad is bad. But let's look at these things and see if we can come to maybe some other conclusions and look at some distinctions about them. Now, pain is almost universally seen as a bad thing. And especially if we're watching a loved one suffer, we would certainly say, yeah, this is a bad thing. However, what is the pain trying to tell us? Pain is God's built-in mechanism to tell us that something's wrong with our bodies and that we should pay attention to it. Now, years ago, when my mother was still alive, she fell. And she hit a concrete block wall while she was falling and then hit the concrete of the driveway. To watch her in pain was hard. And she asked for painkillers when she got to the emergency room. But the doctors had determined that this was not a life-threatening situation, which was, we knew it wasn't going to be that. However, they didn't give her painkillers because they wanted her to tell them where she hurt. If they gave her the painkillers, they were going to cover up the very things they were looking for. And of course, she did finally tell them about her eye and all these things. And you know, it's funny that when something happens to our bodies, you don't always feel everything that's wrong right away. So, had they given her the painkillers, they would have possibly created many more serious complications down the road. So, can I say then that pain was bad? I really can't. I really can't. Even as hard as it was to stand there by her and watch that, that was what needed to happen. Now there's another place that pain is, or lack of pain, is difficult to diagnose. And you may have experienced this yourselves. I know I have on many different occasions. Is something called referred pain in dentistry. It may very well be that what you're feeling is painful. I'm not denying the pain, but that's not what's wrong. Referred pain is when, for example, you have a problem with your bottom tooth, but it's the top of your mouth that hurts. All right? So when the dentist looks there, says there's nothing wrong there, and the first thing they do is look on the other side. I mean, they can't go from left to right because there's no transfer between the hemispheres of the brain that way, but up and down there is. So you may think you have a toothache on the top, but it's really on the bottom. So you have to be careful. This is, what's pain trying to tell you? And then you have to look at what it's trying to tell you. I mean, in this case, the painful tooth is healthy and the diseased tooth doesn't hurt. So which is which? Now let's look at spiritual pain. If any of you think that I have escaped the trials of the life of the Spirit, never questioned the will of God, and many other things, you are sadly mistaken. I would find it hard to accept any man as a priest who had not struggled with the questions of theology, morals, spirituality, and most especially of his own calling. If I had not done these things, how could I possibly minister to anyone if I had not first struggled with them myself? Please do not think that because I have where I am now that I have never been where you are. Don't think that, because I have been. You cannot tell where any other person is spiritually, except maybe possibly the direction in which they're headed. They could be headed for heaven, they could be headed for hell. But that's only for the moment. That could change at the twinkling of an eye, one way or the other. You cannot tell where people have been from where they are, nor can you tell where they are going. I remember one particular example of this when I was in a class in Orlando that I was teaching, and one of the parishioners said, "I want to be where you are spiritually." Sounds nice, doesn't it? But I said to her, be careful what you ask for. Because the only way you can get to where I am is to go through what I went through. And believe me, I don't want that for you. But that's not up to me. It's up to you. Spiritual advancement is only achieved through intense, sometimes painful effort. Because the battle is here in the heart and in the mind, and in the spirit and in the soul. No one can see it, but you experience it. It can be painful. Now, I can honestly say that much of the pain that I have experienced in my life was necessary, perhaps even needful. It was necessary because I was outside the will of God. And the only way that He could help me is to let me get to the point where I was so far down that I would finally look up and say, "Lord, help me, because you're the only way out of this." If that had not happened, I would still be there. The only way that you can avoid pain, or much of it, is to follow the will of God. Of course, we don't always do that. But for as much as that following is in you, you will avoid those painful situations. To put it in a secular sense, when we look at these things, especially on those that we love, there's an old saying: those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. Those who do know history are doomed to watch others repeat it. So if you can learn something from me spiritually that you don't have to experience, I suggest you listen and learn. But if not, well, there's always pain. The Bible puts it a different way when it says in 1 Corinthians 10:13, "There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man." In other words, I get it, you get it, we all get it. If we're going to have the strength to resist temptation, then we will pass the pain. However, there's this funny little thing that in the history of the human race, pain is always the best teacher. It's sad, but it's true. How much have you learned from success, except that, well, okay, I did that right? How much have you learned when you failed and were in pain? I mean, we humans have this wonderful, wonderful saying, do what I say, don't do what I do. But if you're not saying what you're doing or doing what you're saying, then how are they going to listen to you? That brings us back to the question. Is good always good? Or is bad always bad? Let's listen to a Chinese parable. There's a Chinese story, parable if you will, of a farmer that used an old horse to till his fields. And one day, the horse got loose and ran away. So his neighbors came over and said, "Oh, that's such bad luck!" And the farmer looked at him and said, "Good luck, bad luck. Who knows?" A week later, the horse came back with a whole herd of wild horses. Now, in China, horses are very, very valuable. I mean, that's a big windfall, all right? So his neighbors immediately came running over to him and said, "Oh, what good luck!" And the farmer said, "Good luck, bad luck. Who knows?" So anyway, a little bit after that, his son was trying to tame one of the wild horses, was thrown off and broke his leg. So the neighbors again came running over and said, "Oh, what bad luck!" Farmer said, "Good luck, bad luck. Who knows?" So the young one is hobbling around on his broken leg. 3 weeks later, the Chinese army comes through and conscripts every young man in the village, except this young man, because he had a broken leg. He was unfit to serve. So was all of that good luck? Or was all of that bad luck? You see, you can't tell. We have a different perspective because we listen to the story, we have the end of it. But in the meantime, every one of those steps along the way that is perceived as good luck or bad luck, we don't know. Is wealth good? Maybe. Maybe not. Is pain good? Is pain bad? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But the key to this story is the last verse where it says, you let God decide what is good and what is bad. That's the point. We don't know. We don't have, quote, the rest of the story. But God does. So when we are in these situations of what we consider good or of what we consider bad, don't be too caught up in it. Say thank you in both cases. Yes, even in pain. Because it may be that it's for your good. I will tell you that the one thing that is useless about pain is if it doesn't teach you anything. Then you're just suffering for nothing. But if you learn from it, that makes it good. So let us, in our faith, go out into the world and face it, for good or for evil, however the world wants to see it. But as long as God is in it, we will know that He will be glorified, His will be done, and it will be okay. And it will turn out to be a very good thing. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Amen.